tonight brought to you by Progress Kentucky. And yes, I was jamming a little bit to our own producer, Nate Orshan's music. And I'm filling in for Mr. Aaron Viles tonight. He will be returning next week. In the meantime and in between time, I am Kimberly Cecil Jones. And I'd just like for you to know there are 47 days until November the 7th. This week, we'll be covering a couple of actually critically important stories for our Commonwealth. First of all, Doug is going to be digging in on incarceration and how our harsh marijuana laws are just continuously being enforced in a criminal way, and it's playing a role in filling jails and prisons around Kentucky. Then we'll be discussing one of our favorite topics, Mr. Attorney General Dan Cameron's dangerous and radical abortion views and how admitting them turned into a pretty horrible week for his campaign. I don't know if you kept up with that, but hey, we're going to be talking about that. That's the perfect introduction to our interview with friend of the show, Miss Weider. Yes, she's with Planned Parenthood. We'll meet her over in the campaign corner to hear exactly what Planned Parenthood has planned to help send Andy Beshear, our great governor, back to the mansion on November the 7th. So, Miss Tamarra, I love her name, Tamarra. So, but before we do that and get into all of that, how about first, are you ready to help turn Kentucky purple? While political ads are trying to convince you that Andy Beshear is soft on crime, he's against churches, and single-handedly forcing your child to be transgender, the wave of negative ads are designed to keep people tuned out and disgusted with our political system. These are not efforts to inform or inspire deeper interests. They are in an engagement as well. Okay. So, folks, we're not going to fix what's wrong with Kentucky with these ads or this approach. That's why Progress Kentucky is excited to be a part of the Kentucky Future Project. And it's to build the political coalition of new voters, progressive voters, and non-white voters who can come together to make our Commonwealth better. I believe we can do that together. So we're working with great groups like Planned Parenthood, the Fairness Campaign, Showing Up for Racial Justice, Hood to the Holler, and many others to turn out the new Kentucky majority and achieve better electoral outcomes for our Commonwealth. If you would like to support our efforts within this coalition, please make a donation at our secure Act Blue account. Please make that donation. We would appreciate 550, 500. It all adds up at the end of the day. So please give us the materials that we need to make a positive difference on November the 7th. So now it's time to check in with my co-host. My co-host. And also you out there on the internet. Let us know exactly what your sign says. Put it in the chat while we're sharing ours. So mine just simply says today, get these Democrats in office. Because why? It is extremely imperative that we do. There's no other way around it or beyond it. It's scary right now. So Andy and the down ballot must be voted in. Mr. Dougie Fresh.
Yes, good evening, everybody. I'm coming to you from Harrison County, Kentucky. We got a lot going on in downtown Cynthiana, so come check out our ghost walks, and we got lots of skeletons, and they're dead skeletons. They're not skeletons that are buried or anything like that. My protest sign, I'm going to hold it up, and I don't know that it's really a protest, but I don't know. I just want people to think about this. Do boycotts work?
I believe they do, Doug. Every day of the week. I really do believe that when we're consistent, they actually do work. And not only that, you know what? I don't have to go where you are with the skeletons and everything, because when I see my brother Aaron, that's enough. No, I'm just playing. So You all know I'm just saying that because he's not here today. But I love him. We have our little thing, our little banter. But you know what? It's time for news of the week. Doug, I know you got something juicy, juicy, juicy for us. I've been waiting all week for this.
Waiting with bated breath, huh? I don't know where.
I think maybe we've had some technical difficulties. Um, Mr. Doug Price. So you know what we'll do right now? We'll just move on ahead right now to our second story of the news of the week because Doug, he's got an amazing story that I've been waiting for. And you see what? Doug!
I tell you what,
I thought I was going to have to tell my little paltry second story. Okay, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. I
Go
clicked
ahead.
the wrong button, so let me get
It's
started here. I,
okay.
I apologize.
It's all right. They do the same thing on NBC. So, hey, we're in good
Okay,
company.
well, that's good. Uh, I have a shirt on. I don't know whether you can see it or not. I'm going to stand up here a little bit, and maybe you can see it. So I'm talking about an article from our good friends at the Kentucky Center for Economic Policy. And the shirt I'm wearing may have some significance to the story. Perhaps our resident chemist, Chris Priest, can weigh in on the comments. If so, I'll be happy to let everyone know how I came to own this t-shirt. Quoting from the story, an analysis by the Kentucky Administrative Office of the Courts over the past 2 decades, as states around the nation have moved to decriminalize and legalize cannabis, more than 300,000 people in Kentucky have been charged with a cannabis-related crime. That's nearly 2 people charged every hour, every day, between June 2002 and July 2022. And more than half of those charged were convicted of a cannabis-related offense. All told, 1 out of 10 of the 3.1 million people charged with a crime in Kentucky in that time period faced cannabis charges. The data also reveals starkly different conviction rates, with some rural areas nearly twice as likely to convict someone for a cannabis charge than Kentucky's biggest city. Still, as much of the country has moved to more permissive policies, Kentucky, our Kentucky, continues to subject people to incarceration, burdensome fines, community supervision, and criminal charges for cannabis crimes. These consequences have lasting, harmful effects on people's economic security, employment, health, housing, and the ability to fully participate in community life. And these consequences often fall disproportionately on low income and Black and brown Kentuckians. A small step in the right direction happened when the 2023 Kentucky General Assembly passed SB 47, legalizing medical cannabis. While the law does not go into effect until 2025, Kentuckians living with a specific list of medical conditions will soon be able to legally use cannabis for treatment. The law specifies that medical cannabis must be prescribed by a doctor and cannot be smoked. It also sets possession limits for both patients and caregivers. Though the law is an important first step in recognizing the harms of criminalization, the impact on cannabis charges and convictions will likely be minimal. Here is a horrible statistic. If Kentucky was a country, it would have the 7th highest incarceration rate in the world. That's from a 2021 analysis by the Prison Policy Initiative. And a new report shows the rate is a result of criminal justice policy decisions made in the last 3 decades. It sounds bad, but it's actually worse. Not only does the U.S. have the highest incarceration rate in the world, every single U.S. state incarcerates more people per capita than virtually any independent democracy on earth. Lock them up, forget about them. Only Louisiana, Mississippi, Oklahoma, Georgia, Arkansas, and Alabama have a higher incarceration rate than Kentucky. Does building private prisons factor into the equation? In my opinion, here is the problem. This is a quote from the chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee, outgoing Senator Whitney Westerfield. Collectively, our first reaction, similarly to a lot of other states, is that we'd rather do what's easiest and cleanest from an administration standpoint. It's like, let's just get them out of our hair, out of sight, and out of mind. It's easier to campaign on being tough on people. Let's clean up the streets and lock these people up, Westford said. It's far more difficult to do the hard work of recovery, of building people back up. That's the problem. Here's the solution. Until we get our priorities straight, we will not solve this problem. Voters need to decide to elect those people who are willing to address the problem as opposed to just throwing people in jail. Back to you, Kimberly.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I kept doing the button. We're having some technical difficulties. You don't want to know why? Because this information that we are presenting tonight is is extra important tonight. Private prisons um go all the way back for the insurgents of private prisons. If you remember, um, when Bill Clinton signed the bill, three strikes you're out and all of that. And I was a grown woman, married, two children at the time, and I remember exclusively that we all wanted this. There were people, these gangs were taking over America. And now they want to talk about the former president and the former first lady. However, the reason why things went down the tubes as much as they did is because people started doing these private prisons. And it's all by design. That's one of my favorite phrases that I use. It's all by design that you leave and they want you to come back. They actually want you to come back. And they still continue to build these private prisons. And there was a rumor out, and I really had to research. People were saying that Michael Jordan had invested in private prisons, and that has now been debunked. Thank God. I would not want to think of Michael Jordan, such a great man and a great ball player, legendary, that he would be investing any of his money into private prisons. But there are many others out there, if you do the research, that do invest in private prisons, and they are still continuously to build more. So, yeah, you know what, Doug? You know, they need to make it recreational in this state. I think there is a fentanyl crisis right now as well, Doug, with people that buy cannabis on the street levels illegally. They are now putting fentanyl in cannabis. So, if anything, it needs to be regulated because people are getting addicted to this street cannabis because of that killer fentanyl being put into it. And then, second of all, maybe if some of our lawmakers in Frankfurt had a puff or two, they wouldn't be so uptight and just their faces look like they're constipated. What do you think?
I think that would be quite interesting to maybe pass a joint around a legislative meeting room or something like that, and just see if, like you said, some of these uptight lawmakers would become a little looser. But again, I think the real problem is that's what they think the people want. And until we get those kind of people voted out, we're going to get the same old, same old.
Exactly. You are so right about that. And I like the part when you said about black and brown people. And let us not forget um, our people that come here that are from other countries as well. Um, it's it's just a vicious cycle, you know? And a lot of migrants are migrating to New York at this point, and the mayor of New York is saying, we can't handle all of this. And then you've got people moving away from New York because of this problem. Well, you know, the third step, Doug. You know what the third step is. They're going to start arresting all these people for probably bogus reasons. What do you think?
Well, it's hard to tell, what direction that's going to go, but it just, I don't know, locking people away in prisons is just, it's not working. And it's very sad to think that, again, if we were a country, Kentucky, if Kentucky were a country, if Kentucky were, I don't know, Russia or India or whatever, we would have the seventh highest incarceration rate in the world. I mean, that's just crazy. It just does not make sense.
No sense at all. But you know what else doesn't make sense at this particular time? And I want to make sure that I bring up what our great producer said earlier. He made a freaking protest sign that was awesome. He said, our own Nate Dog, Mr. Nate Orshan, he said, nobody changes their mind on abortion rights at the 11th hour. No one does that. And one day, I will tell you all how my son became to be. Okay? How he became to be. So let's move on to the second story really quickly. I don't like to spend a lot of time on this man. I feel like he wears his pants too tight, and I question a lot of things about his personal life as well. The University of Louisville has not said a peep about Daniel Cameron. I think almost they think and he was on the football team. And I think they might feel a little embarrassed. They have no peeps from University of Louisville on Daniel Cameron. So Daniel Cameron's bad week on his bad reproductive health care positions. A candidate survey scrutinized and horrible extreme positions were revealed. Guess what? In national news coverage. You know, I'm getting a little tired of Kentucky always being in national news about something. It's like we don't even get any props unless it's derby time, you know? So, but now Mr. Dan Can it says if the legislature brings him a rape and incest exception bill, he would sign it. And that's a big if, as such a bill was filed last session and it went exactly nowhere. It went to the abyss, to the desert on that. And despite similar lip service from similar anti choice Kentucky Republican politicians, after voters soundly rejected Amendment 2. Now, of course, none of this is surprising from the radical Daniel Cameron, who even opposes medical privacy for women who go out of state for reproductive health care treatments. So, real quick, Doug, because I want to bring our guest into this conversation as well. I can't even look at The Handmaid's Tale anymore. Like, I still got my Hulu subscription, and I got it at the time just to watch The Handmaid's Tale. And now I can't. I can't. It's becoming too real. And
Yeah,
I'm just gonna be, yeah, under his eye. Yeah, under Daniel Cameron's eye with those tight pants on. Like, can somebody get him a stylist? But what I really want to say is this: Daniel Cameron does not even know who he is. Why do I say that? He has let the Trumps and the Mitch McConnells and the Rand Pauls pollute his mind. It's polluted. He don't even know he's black. I know you're like, Kimberly, you say some crazy stuff, but really, no, he doesn't know that he's black. And he doesn't know what this state will do to him. He's not going to win, but he's putting a lot of fodder out there for these people that are supposed to be Christians that are so radical it's embarrassing. Like Jesus is probably like, oh my God, I can't take him, I can't take it anymore, I'm coming back. But Daniel Cameron wants to know if I want to go. My butt is too old to have a baby, just to let you know. But if I wanted to go to another state and have it, he wants to know my records. Are you serious? And if, what do you say about that, Doug? If.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. You mentioned that Cameron attended U of L. Don't forget that he was McConnell's scholar also, and actually worked for McConnell. I guess after he got out of school. Personally, I think it's pretty easy to understand the reason for the 180. Too much heat from women of both parties who really don't care to have men make their medical decisions for them, and in some cases, their female children. And is it possible he'll flip flop on the SB 150 issue, or would that be too big across the bear? All I know is it's 48 days until the election, and I'll be glad when this election is over and when we re-elect Andy Bashir.
Yes, we desperately need Andy and his entire down ballot to take over, because this, I never thought it would ever come to this. As a young woman growing up, I never ever thought that it would ever come to this, Doug. I really didn't. And it's really sad. It's really sad. Plus, like, how you gonna be black and be for Trump and Mitch McConnell? I mean, like, oh, that's another show on another day when we talk about psychological things and trauma. Okay, like Mitch McConnell probably trauma, probably got trauma to the poor young man, and here is the result of a Mitch McConnell mentorship. Have you ever thought of it like that, Doug?
Well, Mitch has his finger in a lot of things, and um, personally, I wish he would just go ahead and retire. He's quite ill from everything that I have seen, and I think he would be better served. And I definitely think the Commonwealth of Kentucky would be better served, and the United States of America would be better served if he retired. And take Daniel with him.
Exactly, exactly. I do remember when I was young and Mitch McConnell used to be our county judge executive here in Jefferson County. And I was very, very young. And I remember him. He wasn't, it really breaks your heart when you know someone didn't start like that. He didn't actually start like that, but this is what we got, and we got some more years to go. So there we go. Let's bring on our guest today and bring her. This is her forte right here. The Kentuckians for Planned Parenthood, Tamarra Weider, Planned Parenthood. Very happy to be welcoming her back. She's been on the show many times before, helping us keep track of all the terrible attacks on reproductive health care access in our Commonwealth. And, which, as we've just heard, once again, it's back in the spotlight thanks to Too Tight Pants, Daniel Cameron, his radical and extreme views. Planned Parenthood, as I've mentioned, is a partner of Progress Kentucky and the Kentucky Future Project. So we're very excited tonight to hear what Planned Parenthood is doing to engage in the November the 7th election. Welcome. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me back. It's always so much fun to be here. And it's a really fun week to talk about Daniel Cameron and reproductive rights and to talk about all the work that Planned Parenthood is doing for the November 7th election. We have a really robust campaign, and it's really exciting to have abortion, be able to take front and center after the No on 2 campaign and show that not only is it a winning issue, but it's literally breaking Daniel Cameron. We are seeing, Daniel Cameron really stumble and fall over his extreme policies, so much so that he doesn't know which way to go to make, clean up his mess over the last 4 years, as he is losing more and more voters as they find out how extreme he is, including on birth control. Depo-Provera, the morning after. I mean, he doesn't even know what he's signing to get endorsements from fringe organizations like the Northern Kentucky Right to Life.
Actually, he seems like he would be a puppet for anyone that had the most power that he felt at that time. We don't even know what his true views about it are. A football player at U of L, I'm pretty sure he's had his, time of two or fun. And we don't know. We don't know if he's put in some money, We don't know. We really don't know what he feels about anything, and that's why he can't be governor.
Well, I think we do know how he feels about abortion because he spent the last 4 years taking abortion away from Kentuckians. He's been in the courts. He has been very vocal in the public space, talking about how he feels about abortion until 2 days ago, he started flip-flopping on that because the polls weren't in his favor. But it's something we've known for a long time here. I mean, and we saw it last year, abortion's a winning issue. He just doesn't know how to handle it.
He doesn't know how to do anything. And what I kind of meant by that is he's such a puppet. You don't know what his true heart is. He's the type of individual that will never be able to speak out what he really feels. He's going to go with the status quo of what is going to get him to where he thinks he wants and needs to be. But I know Doug has a wonderful question for you.
Sure, Tamarra. As I understand, the Planned Parenthood offices in Louisville and Lexington are open, but cannot provide abortion services. But you have a method to be able to help those out who need those services. Is that right?
Correct. So since August 1st of last year, abortion services had to cease because of the trigger ban that Daniel Cameron says that he still believes in. But we now provide navigation services. So we make sure that patients who are seeking abortion care still have all the support that they need to navigate this really confusing time where you have to flee your state and go right now to Illinois or potentially Ohio and find a health center that can provide your care for you. And so we make sure that we help them with finding hotels, and linking them up with other practical support. So like the Kentucky Health Justice Network with somebody that we would get them in contact with, but also making sure that we can help them play that Tetris game, because it's not just Kentucky who is fleeing to another state. When you look around, it's Indiana, it's Tennessee, it's Missouri, all these other states too. It's West Virginia. We're all, navigating this really hostile landscape and going to a few states. And so we help navigate our patients, across state lines and make sure that they're getting the best care that they can. and making sure that they still have the best support systems that we can offer.
I kind of want to follow up on something, and I don't know, just thinking about when someone comes to you all before the ban and is thinking about obtaining an abortion, you all are there for them, and you're there to help them through this process. And now you're there for them to help them through this process that's got worse. And I can only imagine how, I don't know, how you must be able to go to sleep at night knowing that you have been able to help so many people.
No, it's really difficult too, though. There's a lot of trauma for the front of staff, and those who are doing the navigation, because you share in a lot of people's fear and trauma and having to navigate, all the additional time off, all the additional money, all the additional burdens of having to travel so far for care and not understanding why you can't get it in your home state. Some people don't, realize that in Kentucky you can't get abortion, or they don't realize, we were able until August 1st of this year to go to Indiana. That, ended August 1st. And so why they can no longer go to Indiana. And so, we do take, a modicum, amount of comfort in knowing that we are helping them, but it takes a toll when you know that you have the providers, that you have, the resources. You are looking around and seeing that you could provide abortion care here in a state that desperately needs it, but you can't.
What I would like to piggyback on that is, what if a young lady becomes pregnant and wants an abortion? Uh, she's gotten the money for the actual abortion, but the traveling and all those type of things. Is there any type of monies out there that some of these women could have for travel and food, help with hotel?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there are different groups that we work with. So Kentucky Health Justice Network provides practical abortion support. And so we link them up with the Kentucky Health Justice Network that does help with that. There's also the A Fund that helps with the practical support as well. We have the Justice Fund at Planned Parenthood that helps. And so we all try to pool our resources together to make sure that we are meeting the need to help them reduce any of those other barriers that are coming into place, because they are at times insurmountable for some. And so we try to reduce those barriers as much as possible with those additional funds through the different organizations. And I will say the best partner, really in Kentucky that's doing that, our, Kentucky Health Justice Network and the A Fund. That's like that's where they really operate. And we really focus on trying to get the healthcare component figured out.
One thing I wanted to say, and then I know Doug has something else he'd like to say as well. I know it's many, many years ago when the cavemen were still walking on the earth. I was pregnant. And even if you come, because I know that Mr. Nate, I always like to point out a lot of his comments because they are so, relevant. He said, and wealthy and even middle class people can get resources for abortions, but people without money, you know what? Well, you know what? Sometimes people with money, wealthy people, upper middle class people, maybe can't get all of the resources because they have a family that's totally against abortion. So where are you going to get your money from, right? And something like that happened to me, and it was just a fluke. And then my mom, we were supposed to go down to Atlanta because it was going to be a 2-day procedure because I was so far gone. And my mom came in the house one day and she said, Kimberly, I don't know what you're going to do, but I've been waiting on this meeting in Houston, and I've got to go to this meeting. So you're going to have to get a friend with you or something. And I couldn't get anybody to go. no family members, anything. You know, you don't want to tell all your
Mhm.
so-called friends, you know. And I had to end up having my son. And sometimes those situations do happen. But if it were possible back then that I would have had some help, um, some advocacy, and we're talking about 1990, okay? We're talking at 1990, you know, maybe I would have been able to have that abortion.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
things have changed dramatically for women now to have that support system, because it is imperative to have support when you're making a decision like that. And like Nate said earlier, you don't change your views on abortion at the 11th hour. Most women, they go back and forth. It's a tug of war in your mind. And it's important to have people that can understand and be there to help you. And a lot of times it's not your family. So, what do you think about that?
Well, I think everybody's story is unique, and the circumstances are different, but I think the support is the most important component. And that, there needs to be, structures in place that support people and give everybody their options, in a non-judgmental way and in a caring way. And that there are structures that, if you want an abortion, that you don't go bankrupt trying to get one, that you don't have to leave your state if you that you don't feel unsafe going to get one, like having to, go through a herd of protesters that are screaming obscenities at you. I feel like you should just be able to access healthcare in a safe and supportive environment with, doctors who don't have to give you, non-scientific information that has been dictated to you by, the state that are not doctors. And so I wish we could go back to, a time in Kentucky right now where we could provide, care that wasn't, um, handcuffed by the state. Our patients are counting on us to bring care back. And it's been a really hard year for so many of us in the movement to see people fleeing.
And
Yeah.
and I think the one of the most important things I got out of what you just said was this is healthcare, and you ought to be able to obtain healthcare in Kentucky. You shouldn't have to go to Illinois or another state to be able to obtain health care. And I want to tie that in with uh, another bill that I was uh, very involved in, SB 150. And I want to ask you, um, how do you, how are you able to continue to go talk to legislators and with the knowledge that a lot of those legislators are really not listening, but you have to do that job. With me, I've written off several legislators and will never talk to them again. And that's not beneficial because you need to have an open, at least try to have an open dialogue. So tell me what you do, what I can do to be a better person, to advocate and not get so doggone frustrated.
No, Doug, you are a good person. I struggle. Many I struggled that after this legislative session. This one took a toll. This one took a deep and emotional toll. The inhumanity, that was just rampant across, the legislature. The cruelty was so pervasive. But one thing that I really take a lot of hope in is, my team and I got right back to work and we started knocking doors. We started doing legislative accountability and we picked districts. We looked at where No on 2 didn't win but came close. And we, a lot of the districts were in areas with where the really nasty legislators were. And we started knocking on doors and talking to them about, Senate Bill 150, talking about how the exemptions didn't move. And well, I want to put a clarifier. The exemption bill was a bad exemption bill. And so I do want to put that out there, the one that was filed. But, it didn't move. It was all for show. It was theater. But, that we don't have access to abortion. And we got on the doors and had really good conversations with individuals who didn't really understand SB 150, didn't know that nothing was moved on abortion. And we did it in rural Kentucky, in the suburbs of Louisville and Lexington. And I feel like if we continue that strategic push, we will get some of these people out the door. Now, I'm Planned Parenthood. A lot of these people won't even meet with me. So while I'd like for them to meet with me, they don't meet with me to begin with. I think they see me coming and they run. It's a non-starter on a lot of issues. I mean, we provide gender-affirming healthcare. Of course, I'm the biggest advocate, with the ACLU on abortion. And so they run when, the door is closed. It's a non-starter on a lot of issues with me. But, there are a few that, I do get in to have conversations with, but I take a lot of joy in the political advocacy and the growing power that we're having on the ground and moving voters. And that win on No on 2 and the data that we got in the research, we're continuing that. We're moving that into our ground game for this election. We did our biggest investment to date for a gubernatorial. We just did a 6-figure ad buy. And maybe we'll get some more, I hope, excitement drummed up, around the down ballot candidates who I do want to give a plug. I mean, Daniel Cameron signed, the pledge for the birth control, banning birth control, but so did Adams, Ball, Shell, and Metcalf. So, most of the ticket also want to take away your birth control as well. And so I'm excited to hit hard and do a lot of education that way as well. And so for me, it's getting back at the polls because I know in Frankfort, I'm a non-starter in many, many of the rooms.
Let me ask you this, Tamarra. Can you still get the morning after pill here in
Yes.
Kentucky? Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Is that just like hanging on by a thread at this point?
Not to my knowledge. It is not considered it is not an abortifacient. Let me say that out loud. The morning after pill is not an abortifacient. It is, a form of birth control. So that is not, to my knowledge, something that is, being taken away. But there are legislators. Nancy Tate has made it very clear she would like it removed from public universities and health departments. And, she wants it to not be available by mail. And the same with birth control. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see movement. Clarence Thomas, the Supreme Court justice, had said that he wanted to see Griswold, which protected, gave us birth control protected in, the Supreme Court. He wants that to be gutted the way Roe was. So, I mean, I think we have a future where we need to be talking about that, birth control isn't as protected. People did not believe us when we were saying Roe was going to fall. We can't take birth control for granted like we did Roe. And so we need to be proactive and make sure that all of the candidates that are going into office protect, not only abortion, but birth control. And so I think, that Northern Kentucky Right to Life questionnaire is a huge signifier. It wasn't just Cameron. It was Michael Adams, who is very popular among both parties. He's got crossover into the Democrats. He wants to take away your birth control. So does Allison Ball. So does Jonathan Shell and Metcalf. I forgot Metcalf's first name. Oh, no. Mark Metcalf.
Yeah.
They're coming for it, too. And it's so, and there are other people, in Frankfort who I'm sure would co-sign. I have a few in mind, who would co-sign Nancy Tate if she filed a bill.
Oh, yeah. I can name a few myself. There's no
I've got a long list.
Yeah.
What is so traumatizing to most women about this in Kentucky is, why do they want to take away birth control? And plus, we don't just, somebody says they're pregnant, we don't just say, oh, you need to have an abortion. We just want to be there if this is your decision, and to know that you have safe, certified facilities to have this procedure done. Because too many people died in those back alley abortions, as they were called. I have a friend, very, very close friend of mine, her sister died from the back alley abortions back in the day. But these people, they want to take all of this away. But when these kids come here, what do? They really don't want to vote to have the school system operate like it's supposed to. They're cutting Medicaid. They're cutting unemployment. They just they're the cut creators. But you want all these women, they just want us barefoot and pregnant in the daggone kitchen, girl. That's what I really feel.
And there was a bill last year that made it to committee where we were asking for, if you find out you're pregnant, that there's a special enrollment period that you can get on insurance if you didn't have it. And one of the legislators, I believe it was Jim Gooch, said, well, it seems like your house is on fire. Why should you have access to insurance now if you didn't? Because now you're pregnant. And it was like, you're forcing us to remain pregnant and then not letting us have access to insurance to have a healthy pregnancy. Great.
And most of them, they're cheaters anyway. I mean, I'm not going to mention any names. It's hearsay at the federal level all the way down. A lot of them, and we have proof, a lot of them have been cheating. So if they want to take away birth control, I guess they're just going to have to stop cheating. Am I correct about that?
Well, their mistresses will always have access.
Exactly. I like you, girl. I like your style. You tell it like how it is. Tell the people how they could get involved and help this very, very important cause right here. This is, my daughter doesn't even want to come back to Kentucky. She's in the Air Force. She's like, Mom, I'm not coming back to Kentucky.
Yeah.
We're going to be losing a lot of our brightest stars by some of these asinine bills that they want to pass. So how could the people get in touch and do something?
Yeah, so there are many opportunities to volunteer with us. It is election season, so you can come and join us by volunteering for a canvas. I actually don't know if I think you all have my email address. Maybe you can pop that in the chat. I don't know how to, just email me. We can pop you into a canvas. We are in Louisville, Lexington. We are near Murray. We are near Richmond and Berea. We're all over the state, and we're going to have canvases all over the state. We have phones that you can do. You can call and do phones or text from your home in your pajamas if you don't want to knock on doors. We're also going to be doing some election protection work as well in Western Kentucky. So if you're in Western Kentucky and want to make sure that there's no shenanigans happening around at the polls, we're going to be doing some poll work for the election. And there's always lots of opportunities. We have lots of fun tabling work that we do with prides, but also lots of great opportunities to do sex education and awareness around what's going on in Frankfurt. So like those, we just ended our accountability work, but we like to go and talk to people at the doors about what's happening. And those actually end up being some of our best conversations that we do between session and elections. But there's plenty of work and opportunities, and you can always come and join us. We'd love to have you.
Well, I appreciate you tonight. It's always good to see you.
Likewise. Thank you for having me on.
Putting in that work.
I am. And I have a second. I forgot. My comms manager would be mad. If you, there is a line, if you are pregnant in Kentucky seeking an abortion, and would like to be a plaintiff, because we still are seeking a plaintiff for a trigger ban case. The number is 617-297-7012. And
Can you repeat that for the people in the back that maybe
yes,
didn't hear you?
That is 297-7012. And this is if you are seeking an abortion, have been denied, please give this number a call. We are still seeking a plaintiff for our trigger ban case. Give that a call, and that'll take you to the ACLU's line, and they can talk to you, make sure that you do get access to an abortion as well. But to see if you would be the right person to maybe be the Jane Doe for the plaintiff for our abortion case, if you are interested.
Sounds good. As long as there's women out here doing what you're doing, we have no other choice but to be successful. Sometimes it's got to get real bad before it gets real excellent. It's so nice to see you again. You know you're going to be back, right? So
I probably will, and I'll be happy to when we win this November.
yes. Thank you so much. I just really appreciate you. And everyone, that was our very own Kentuckians with Planned Parenthood, Tamarra Wieder. Now, call to action. Sign up for Progress Kentucky's 4 more years of a compassionate Commonwealth campaign. We're all in on re-electing, of course, Andy Brashear and putting Colonel Pamela Stevenson in the AG's office. And yes, Kim Reeder in the auditor's office. We're doing calling and canvassing every week between now and November the 7th. Please sign up to help out. This is like getting to the end of the line. The clock is ticking. We need all the help that we possibly can get to get these people in office. Is so important. And so, Mr. Dougie Fresh, it's been really fun with you tonight.
Yes, it's been a lot of fun, Kimberly, as always.
As always, Dougie Fresh. So, will you please close us out tonight?
Yes, I'll be happy to, as long as I don't click the wrong button and cut myself off. Progress Kentucky is a nonprofit organization registered with the Kentucky Secretary of State and organized as a 501c4. We are affiliated with the Indivisible Project, the Commonwealth Alliance Voter Engagement, commonly referred to as CAVE, and are also proud members of the Forward Kentucky Network. Progress Kentucky's goal is to educate, organize, increase voter turnout, and advance a progressive agenda through civic engagement. Make sure to join us next week when we'll be covering the breaking news out of the governor's race, and we will welcome Chris Hartman of the Kentucky Fairness Campaign, who'll be coming back on the show to share what he's watching in this election and how his organization is engaging voters. Production of this episode was by the amazing Nate Orshan. And thank you, Nate, for the new song and the theme songs. You can find more information and music at natosongs.com. If you miss our weekly live stream on Facebook or YouTube, audio podcasts and our show notes are available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. If you do listen to the pod, please leave us a 5-star review. That's as high as it can go, wherever you are listening right now. Logo and some graphic content provided by Couchfire Media. More information can be found at couchfiremedia.com. Hope to see you next week.
You know what, Doug? I want Nate to put that picture up one more time. If he could just put that picture up one more time. That is the look of someone that is totally against being taking care of women's reproductive rights. That's the look right there, y'all. That's the look. Good night.
That's the look.